part of the reason I became a franchisor is because I've seen it done in a way that I don't believe is responsible. I think we have a duty to franchisees to deliver on the things we're telling them we're going to do. And there's so much more complexity to actually franchising a business, because a franchisor is a coach, they're marketing professionals, they're motivators, therapists sometimes. And that's a completely different skill set. Here's the other thing, and this is what people have to think about, is like, you're not producing a considerable amount of royalties for a while, but you still have to provide the support to get to royalty self-sufficiency. If you're not a people person, I don't think you should be a business owner.
This is the most refreshing conversation I've had in a long time, because
as a franchisor, you're going to burn cash on a monthly basis for a long time. And especially if you hire a franchise sales organization, now you've got nothing. The best advice that I was given, and I'll give this to whoever is listening, is to raise smart money. I believe that business and life in general is built on enriching relationships. And if we approach each interaction that we talk, whether it's a referral partner or a vendor or a customer or a franchisee, with the goal of building a meaningful relationship, we'll have an enriching life and our businesses will grow.
Look, so I rarely ever invite franchisors on the podcast because I don't want this to turn into a pitch fest of franchise brands telling you why they are so great. But after seeing what Aaron is building with his franchise and having followed him on LinkedIn recently, I was intrigued and wanted to find out more about what he was all about, because Aaron talks about this phrase, responsible franchising, and which is something that we dive into this episode, and why you need to know about what that is. Now, Aaron is the CEO and owner of Rolling Suds, which is an emerging power washing franchise. Now, despite only starting to franchise just about a year ago in January of 2023, they've had explosive growth over the last year, adding over 100 territories sold in 22 states. Now, growing that fast has a lot of risk associated with it, and that's something that we dove into in this episode. We also talked about the investment cost to get up one of these franchises up and running, along with how much these franchises make based on what's in the item 19. But a lot of our conversation was around how can franchisees be put in the best position to win and be successful in their business. We also talked about how to build the right team and structure incentive plans in your business. And it's really just a great episode to get inside the mind of a CEO of a company that's exploding with growth, to understand how he thinks and makes decisions. You will leave this episode as a better entrepreneur. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory, and you can schedule a free call to see what's available in your area. The links are in the description below. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires, so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. All right, welcome to another episode of the Franchise Empire Show, and I'm here with Aaron Harper, CEO, Rolling Suds. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sweet. So I was, one of the reasons why I invited you to come on is I've been seeing all your posts on LinkedIn. I love the fellow content creators going out there sharing the journey, and I thought what was interesting is that you kept talking about a concept called responsible franchising, and I don't know that I had really heard anyone ever say that phrase or term before. So what does that mean?
So responsible franchising to me is setting clear expectations, choosing the right franchisees, capital adequacy. So making sure that like the people come in have the right knowledge of what they're going to expect, both good and bad. They have the capital to grow the business, and that they're in the right system. And what I've seen over the years is a lot of that doesn't happen sometimes. People join a system thinking that they can run it a certain way, and what they end up realizing is that the business was a lot harder, or needed more capital, or it was more time intensive, or whatever, than it was originally presented to them. So my background is from franchise development. I've been in franchise development and franchising for years before I became a franchisor. And part of the reason I became a franchisor is because I've seen it done in a way that I don't believe is responsible. Unfortunately, more times than I've seen it done responsibly. So I talk regularly about responsible franchising. And part of the reason why I share so much content about what we're doing and how we're doing it is so that people who want to become franchisees of Rolling Suds see what we're doing, and know that we're honest and transparent, and we say what we're going to do, and we're accountable, and all that kind of stuff. And B, future franchisors, or people who are considering becoming franchisors, are like, oh, this is the way I have to do it. And so I don't think a ton of people talk about, like you mentioned, I don't think a ton of people talk about responsible franchising, but I think it's really important, because us as franchisors and as franchise executives and franchise development professionals, and I think we have a duty to franchisees to deliver on the things we're telling them we're going to do. And I think the franchise industry as a whole will be able to survive long term, if it's responsible. If we're by and large irresponsible, we're going to face litigation, and a lot more franchisees aren't going to succeed. And that's not what I'm here to do.
My intention with this podcast is to help you build your empire. If you've gotten a single piece of value, one of the best ways you can help me and the podcast is to simply press the like button on YouTube. Lastly, share this podcast. Share it with someone who you know who is an empire builder. Imagine the impact you can have by helping them learn something that can build their business and empire. People will associate the value they got from this information from you, the person that shared it with them, all because you shared it with them. I appreciate you and your support. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I love the concept, because there are a lot of franchisors that you have to sell the dream in a manner, right? That is whenever you're presenting an opportunity, you got to show the opportunity, right? But there is a fine line between showing the opportunity and really setting the wrong expectation. So I guess what does that conversation look like for you with the franchise candidates or people that you're talking to, in terms of like actually giving them a dose of the reality of what it's like?
So I work heavily with franchise consultants, and I believe that I work with some of the best franchise consultants in the industry. They know me, they trust me, they know that I'm going to take care of their candidates. They also know what I'm looking for in a franchisee. And so very rarely does the franchisee who is looking for a part-time business make it to my calendar.
Mm.
And it's a pretty big investment, right? We're a minimum of $250,000 that someone needs to have in cash, in order to be successful. But when they do make it to my calendar, and they say, like, I had a conversation with a guy last week, had never started a business before, had been a W-2 employee, and says, I'm looking for something where I can invest $200,000 to $300,000, keep my job full time, and maybe 10, 15 hours a week, build a multi-million-dollar, but I'm committed to building a multi-million-dollar business. I was like, that's not how business works. And you're not right for Rolling Suds, which is totally fine. And he goes, you're not one of the franchisors that will hire and train all my employees and help make them be successful. And I'm like, that's not how franchising works. It's your business. It's going to be we legally can't hire, recruit, and train as franchisors due to shared labor laws. So like, that's totally not real. And if we could, we'd just open corporate locations, because why make 8% royalty when we can make 40% running the business? There's a gap in like understanding of what's real and what's not. And but buyers don't understand that, because there are people saying you can hire a general manager and they'll open your men's health business and hire the doctor and grow you to 800,000 EBITDA. And it's like, it's just, that's not how it works.
Not how
That's
it
not how it works. Like, I mean, anyone who started a business before who's listening to this knows that's not how it works.
Or those
And
are
so
the people that wind up having a hard time, right? Because it winds up going that way, and then they're like, why isn't my business succeeding? Or they go from, I thought I was going to be putting 10, 15 hours a week, to like, I basically have another full-time job, or I had to leave my job to go full-time into the business.
that's it. That's it. They either fold and have a failure, or they end up having to leave their job. And during that year that they tried to make it work with someone that they're paying $60,000 to $80,000 a year for, they've burned so much cash at that point that it's, the investment's way higher. And I believe that if that happens, we will continue to have irresponsible franchising practices. And what ends up happening is 10, 15 years from now, when responsible franchisors are trying to say, hey, like, you should buy my franchise, they're going to be like, my cousin bought a franchise and he had to close it, or there were too many fees, or he didn't get the support, or, and then we've got more Subway and Quiznos and, Menchie's and these types of, horror stories that hurt the franchise industry. So my thought is that if at scale I can create content that shows the right way to do it, expressing everything I've learned over the years working in the franchise space, the mistakes I've made, the mistakes other people have made, and also the wins that we've had, and what those wins have resulted in franchisees' lives, right? Because like franchising, if done the right way, there's not a better business model in the world. Like, and I obviously am biased, but like, I can't think of a business model that's created more jobs and more entrepreneurs. And it can be done really well. But we have to build the systems on the front end in order to do that. And I believe we've done that with Rolling Suds. And I've got 16 people on my team. I'm hiring a new person every 2 weeks, and we're a brand new franchise brand within our first year.
Yeah, it's awesome. So just to rewind the clock a little bit, because we kind of dove in on the
Yeah.
deep end, which I loved. I loved that part of the conversation, and that's why I invited you on, because I don't typically invite franchisors on. Like, a lot will reach out, we'll say no to a lot. We're just not trying to put just random
Right.
stuff up there. But I think as I started to see your message or your post on LinkedIn, I thought, man, that's I resonate with that mindset. That's a shared kind of belief that I have. So I thought it'd be cool to have a conversation. So thanks for diving into that. So what is Rolling Suds? What do you guys do? What's the opportunity overall?
So we're a residential and commercial power washing franchise. I've been, like I said, I came from the franchise development world and decided to become a franchisor. And so I looked at about 24 businesses that I could franchise and replicate. And I met the founders of Rolling Suds in September of 2022. So 33-year-old, multi-million-dollar residential and commercial power washing business. And they had one location. And then I knew I could replicate it and bring all the systems that I've learned over the years in the franchise space and create a franchise around it. And so we just focus on this one thing, which is power washing. And we are, becoming the leader in the power washing industry as a whole, which currently prior to us, doesn't have one. It's a super fragmented industry. The majority of the industry is the guy who power washes. He does it on his own. He makes 6 figures a year working 7 months, and like, that's great for him. But my thought is that if I can bring a bunch of professional business owners into a space that is super fragmented and then put a brand around it and create a consistency in customer experience, we can build a massive company. And so what we're doing basically is professionalizing a service that has high demand in the same way that 1-800-GOT-JUNK did back in the 90s. I mean, the junk business back then was just a dude that put junk in the back of his truck. And they came in and answered the phone on time and showed up and paved the way for college hunk selling junk and junk king and junk luggers, but they were first. and they built $1 billion company. I think they do $1 billion in system-wide sales across all of their locations. And then they went and got national accounts. And when they went and got national accounts, there was no one competing with them. And so we're doing to the power washing industry right now what they did to the junk business in the 90s. And then there's a bunch of layers of support that we provide, and marketing and training and recruiting and scaling the business. But we've been very selective. I've turned away 45 people who had the capital, wanted to write me a $200,000 check, but weren't right for our system. And we're bringing in very high caliber individuals who know how to like, they just operate on a high level. And I'm really proud of the community of franchisees we've curated.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a couple different questions that popped into my head. Let's see, where do I want to? Who do you consider a high caliber candidate? Let's just start there. What's that ideal person look like? How do they think? What are their beliefs? What do they do?
So a lot of franchisees will they'll leave a business, right? Or excuse me, they'll leave a job. They buy a franchise. They put $100,000 into a window cleaning brand. They run that business by being the business for 2 to 3 years. Then they get tired and burnt out because they bought themselves a job, and then they try to sell the business and it has no value because they're the business. And where they get up to $1 million, they make $200,000, they let the gas off the pedal, and that happens a lot. And I've seen it happen in home service franchising, particularly because the cost of entry is kind of low. And so people are able to do that. The people that we're bringing in, $1 million business is a starting point. That is not somewhere where they want to stay. That is just a starting point. The people that we've brought in want to build multi-million-dollar enterprises, add other brands at some point, build portfolio companies. So just really high caliber individuals. My thought is that if we obsess over the franchisee experience, like me and my team, and franchisees obsess over the customer experience, all of our businesses will grow, because those are the two most important things is the customer and the franchisee. And I believe that the franchisee is our customer. Like, we provide services. In return for the services, we're paid a royalty. And as their business grows, they're going to need different services. And so our services will have to innovate, or we'll have to build systems now to know what they're going to need a year, 2 years from now, which is what we're doing. So that's my thought around that.
Yeah. So these are folks that are, I'm assuming, have, either sales, management, business development backgrounds, well capitalized, and they're coming in going, they have a certain foundational asset in terms of how they think, in terms of their skill set. So overall, they're not kind of nervous coming in the business. What do I do? Kind of, hold my hand, help me. It's like they do want the structure and the infrastructure, et cetera, but they're like, all right, ready to rock and roll, man.
But then they go and they execute. And so we've brought in multiple C-level executives, CEOs, CFOs, COOs. We've brought in people who have raised capital of over 50 million, and exit had been part of like helping startups prepare for exit. We brought in multiple private equity guys who have analyzed opportunities, and we're making $700,000 a year and have originated multi-unit franchisee acquisitions. And, we've brought in, I'm talking to like a professional athlete right now. Like, we've just brought in like really high caliber individuals, people who are making $350,000, $400,000 a year, and they're leaving that full time to come scale this business. And I've got multiple guys that are like, Aaron, I'm not taking anything out of, no distributions, no profit out of this company until we have at least 5 trucks, 6 trucks on the road. And, like the guy I hired, we're opening a corporate location in Nashville this year. So we're basically going to I live in Nashville. We're going to run the play that we're giving franchisees. We're going to eat our own lunch, so to speak. And I hired someone who was managing $192 million of a $700 million company, managing 300 people underneath him. And he's going to run our corporate ops. And that'll allow us to be better franchisees because we get to test things out, try it. And then we're like, so I told him, I was like, tell me exactly what we need to do to get this business to $10 million, and who we need to hire and when we need to hire them, and we'll do it.
I love it. So tell us about what does the financial opportunity look like overall, or what do you guys show in your item 19? And you mentioned you mentioned vaguely startup cost of like 250, but what does the startup cost look like, and what does that entail?
So 2 territories and 2 trucks is about 260. Um, that's what you need to
And is that the
open.
minimum?
That is the minimum. 2 territories. We don't do single unit deals. We're just simply not looking for single unit owners. Everyone we're bringing in has a multi-unit mentality. Um, so that's what you would need. Our franchise fee is currently $39.9. Um, it is going up this year. When I launched in February, it was me and 2 employees. Now it's me and 16 employees. So the infrastructure is slightly different to support. So we're going up about 10 grand per territory to be a little bit more normal with industry standard.
Yeah, because that's pretty low. A lot of brands are around 50, and some are even at 60 these
A
days.
lot of them are at 60. Yeah. So I went 39.9 year one because I'm like, listen, you're going to be one of the first. You're taking a risk on us. Want you to have more upside. But now we've grown. So I acquired the franchise rights from our founders in January of last year. We started franchising in February, and we now have 109 locations in 23 states nationwide. Um, so yeah, 2 territories and 2 trucks is about 260. When we go up, just add 20 grand to that. But anyone who has in kind of the 250 to 350 range would be good. Most of our franchisees have purchased 3 territories. That is the cap, unless they've scaled a business before. We'll allow more than, on a case by case basis, more than 3 to start. But I mean, that's 750,000 people. A lot of people in the home services space are 60,000 households. We're 100,000 households, or they're 150 to 200,000 people. We're 250,000 people. So the territory sizes are larger than industry standard. And then based on our item 19 from the numbers of our corporate location from 2022, we're 37% EBITDA margins with a $2.2 million business, so over 800,000 EBITDA. And then what I've done is I've broken it down on a per truck basis. It's a lot more easy for me to replicate a full-time truck than a 33-year-old power washing business that's growing by $200,000 to $400,000 a year for the last 8 years and spends nothing on ads. So we break it down on a per truck basis, which is 373,000 top line per truck with 2 guys. Again, based on the FDD of the same year. Those numbers are going up based upon the performance of last year, because they started doing all of the stuff that I recommended franchisees, and it enhanced their business dramatically, which is pretty cool.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast episode so far. One of the most consistent things that we hear from people that reach out to us is that buying a franchise feels really confusing. There's so many options out there. It's a scary decision. They don't know how to vet or do the due diligence or really narrow down on the right franchise for them, and then they really feel alone in the process. You might be the only one in your family who's ever pursued buying a franchise or being an entrepreneur, or maybe you've tried to start a side hustle before, or other businesses like me. Like before franchising, I was not able to crack the code on entrepreneurship. I'd like to invite you to reach out and work with us. We've helped many clients buy franchises, get them profitable, or buy resale businesses that are thriving. I'm talking about highly profitable resales, great value. We've allowed many of our clients to actually quit their job right away and replace their income immediately. So if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise, doing due diligence, vetting it, or resale, then go ahead and go to tarzjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. All right, enjoy the rest of the episode. That is pretty cool. Interesting. So what I'm curious. So what is that? Because this is becoming quite popular for entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial minded people to go out there, find a business that has been proven, has strong operators, and go, okay, cool, let's go franchise this thing and kind of allow people the opportunity to build this business too. How does that how does that conversation work? Like, because we have folks that listen that are kind of all over the map. So we may have folks that listen that might want to go do that sort of thing, right? Not in the not in the space that you're in, but maybe in other spaces. So how do you go about that? What's the process like? What are those conversations like? How do you go about structuring a deal? Break that down for us.
Yeah, so it's funny. I had no playbook for this. There's no like template online of how you structure the acquisition of the franchise rights for a 30-plus-year-old blue collar business. So my
Maybe
thought,
there
and
should
this
be.
there should be, right. My thought is that there's two separate businesses when you're franchising. There's in this case the power washing business that's 33 years old, and then there's the franchise business. Two separate businesses. They require different infrastructure, different skill sets, different suppliers, different capital requirements. There's different P&Ls, and there's different knowledge on how to scale those businesses. So what I did is I created a different business, and I partnered with the founders in that new business, and I raised capital for that business. A lot of people who decide to franchise, they might think, hey, I've got a good business in epoxy coatings. I'm going to sell this business to someone else, and then they're going to have a good business, and then I'm going to collect a royalty, and it's going to be great. And there's so much more complexity to actually franchising a business, because a franchisor is a coach. They're marketing professionals. They're motivators, therapists sometimes. And that's a completely different skill set. So what I always, a lot of emerging franchisors come and ask for my help. And the first thing I ask before anyone just says they want to franchise, like before they tell me and I give any advice, I ask, how much capital do you have to go towards franchising? You'd be shocked at how many times it's under $100,000. They're going to need over $1 million to properly franchise a business.
Wow. Why is that? And where's that money go?
So they're going to need to hire people who can open the locations, which you're going to need to pay someone over $100,000 to run ops. That's before you've even built marketing systems. That's before you've even sought out suppliers. That's before you've even, the legal and operations manual could be $100,000. And then you need to hire someone who can help generate leads for franchisees. That's got to be a higher level marketing person. That marketing person has to be able to generate leads in like all 50 states potentially, right? So like so it's all typically going to go towards human capital, along with like creating marketing materials, and you're going to need software for the franchisees to run their business. You're also going to need software for the franchisor to run their business, because you have to know the data. You can't make decisions on how to support franchisees without data. That's all infrastructure that has to be built. So like for me, I took 7 months before we even sold franchises of building infrastructure to make sure that when we sold franchises, we'd be able to get them open and support. And then even with my knowledge of like almost a decade of franchise experience, I didn't allow more than 2 to 3 people to go to a training, because then we had to get our training systems down and make sure there was a knowledge transfer to the franchisees so they could be successful. So like there's a whole ton of stuff, and that's like maybe a service business. Here's the other thing, and this is what people have to think about, is like you're not producing a considerable amount of royalties for a while, but you still have to provide the support to get to royalty self-sufficiency. So as a franchisor, you're gonna burn cash on a monthly basis for a long time. And especially if you hire a franchise sales organization, now you've got nothing. Pretty much, you're losing money on franchise fees. So now you need more than $1 million. And no one is telling franchisors that, because if they did, no one would become a franchisor.
Oh man, and it's crazy because they do, and then you get those people that become franchisees at the beginning, not knowing what they're stepping into, and then it becomes a bit of a disaster, and then it kind of gives just franchising as a whole a bad reputation.
This takes me back to the beginning of our conversation, responsible franchising. I would rather tell people, don't franchise your business or go save capital or raise capital. than have them go franchise. Because it'd be like this, Tark. If I came to you and I'm like, hey, I'm a franchisor, but I'm going to go open an HVAC business in Nashville, and I'm going to go run that HVAC business. And the next 3 years, that HVAC business is going to be worth $100 million. You'd be like, but your experience is in franchising. Be like, yeah. But like, I'm going to do HVAC, and I'm going to hire technicians and it'll be fine. I'm going to put a general manager in place and I'm going to grow it to $100 million. That's not a reality, right? Because that's not where my experience lies. So like someone who steps out of, let's turn that around. HVAC guy's got $100 million HVAC business. He wants to become a franchisor. He needs to hire someone, pay them $150,000 to $250,000 a year who has experience in franchising to get him to a large HVAC franchise. And without that, he's going to struggle.
Yeah. It makes total sense. So what was that process like raising capital? Are you hitting up friends and family? Or are you structuring an actual like Reg D? Like what are you doing?
So I was fortunate enough due to what we did. So I was involved with Patch Boys. Do you know the brand, the Patch Boys?
I've heard of it.
So it was a drywall repair franchise. So that business at the company that I worked with when we acquired it had 100 locations. Me and a brand president rebuilt infrastructure to get that brand ready for scaling. We scaled that. I added in 2 years 223 locations to that brand in 24 months. So from 2020 to 2022, I added 223 locations. Every one of those franchisees opened, which I think is important to talk about. And they opened with jobs on the calendar with the marketing vendors that we worked with and a full-time skilled laborer hired prior to going to training. So no one was coming in doing the drywall repair. They were all coming in running the business. I was turning away 1 to 3 people a month on that to try to build it as if it was my own. So during that time, obviously, as you know, in franchising, that doesn't happen very often. To sell 100 units and open 100 units per year is not an easy feat. Fortunately, I worked at a portfolio of companies that had a ton of capital and were willing to continue to invest capital in growing that system. And I learned a ton. But during that time at franchise conferences, I had people approach me and say, Aaron, I'll invest in you. Like, whatever brand you want to go after, if you want to become a franchisor, I'll give you whatever capital you need. And so I was able to be super selective with the people I raised capital from because I had such a higher level of interest. And the best advice that I was given, and I'll give this to whoever is listening, is to raise smart money. There is a lot of dumb money out there. Private equity guy comes give you growth capital and, takes a minority share. And he's like, I'll give you 200 grand. And, it's like, that's dumb money. You don't want dumb money. You want smart money. You want people who can provide intellectual capital in addition to actual capital. So a few of my board members are amongst the most respected people in the franchise industry, probably top 5. David Barr is one of them. Brad Fishman is another. These are people who have been in the franchise industry for decades, 3 decades or more, and could provide mentorship. And so those are the people I raise capital from.
Wow. Awesome. Smart move, man. That's super cool. So what do you, how many franchisees do you guys have operating now at this point?
So we have 36 franchisees sold. We have 10 operating in 32 territories. Everyone else will be operating by the end of April. So we have about a 10-week ramp-up process after you sign at minimum. But as I told you, I cap my franchise trainings at what I know my capacity is. So last month was our last 3-person training. We've now built a staff that can support 12 per month. So February is booked. March is booked. By the end of next week, April will be booked. And then whoever signs up now will probably open, or whoever comes in and requests information now will probably open in the soonest would be May. But we're signing up about 2 to 3 people per week right now. So we just cap them when we know what our capacity is.
Yeah, cool. And so far, like when you see some of these franchisees launching, some are obviously going to get off to a faster start than others. What do you see what do you see as the people that are starting to have success right away? Why is that? Well, is it something they're doing differently? Is it a different behavior, thinking, mindset?
Yes. Yes. So the a lot of the thought process for certain franchisees and kind of the way it's presented from franchisors a lot of the time is we'll produce all the leads for you. You can just answer the phone. You can go out and you can sell the jobs, which sounds great. Which we do produce leads with the marketing vendors we work with. However, the best franchisees, again, we're bringing in franchisees that want to build multi-million-dollar businesses. So we tell franchisees that you will not build a multi-million-dollar business just waiting for the phone to ring. This just won't happen. And so we always tie it back to the franchisees' why. We have a why call after they sign. We have them tell us their why. Some people it's building generational wealth. Some people it's passing things down to their family members. Some things I want to exit in 5 years and ride off into the sunset and retire. And so we tie back to the why. But the thing that I have seen that is indicative of a franchisee who's going to build a massive business and one that'll build maybe a mediocre business is, are they out in their community and how many revenue generating activities are they doing on a daily basis? How many relationships are they establishing with referral partners? How many lunch and learns are they doing at different real estate agents' offices? How aggressive are they in that? And we're actually changing internally kind of our talk track of like, let's pretend the leads from the franchisor aren't there. Like, let's just pretend they're not there. How are we going to get to multiple trucks without that? And then if that thought process is the way you're thinking going into a brand and you still want to do it, then you're going to have a lot more success than, well, the franchisor is going to provide all the leads for me. And I think, part of so I do all the franchise development myself currently. We're about to bring someone on who's going to do it, but I've hand selected every single one of the franchisees. I've delegated everything else to my team. And so I'm able to like be 100% like, this is exactly how it's going to be. This is exactly how hard it's going to be. But a lot of franchisees will just be like, a franchisor is a marketing company that just produces leads. That is one layer of support that we provide. And we're not a marketing company. We have vendors that produce the leads, but there's coaching, there's financial modeling, there's training, there's ongoing support. There's a community of franchisees that we're building. There's nurturance of all of that stuff. And so the marketing is just one very small piece. And so if a franchisee comes and just focuses on the phone is going to be made to ring by the franchisor, they're missing the boat on the rest of the 90% of what a franchisor provides from a support standpoint.
So, or is what you're saying then, what I'm reading between the lines, so what you're saying is the folks that start seeing the success, what they're doing and focusing on is being great at marketing and how to generate leads. Is that what you're saying?
So it's being out in the community, generating their own leads and understanding that it's their business, that they have to grow, and that we're here to support them and give them the tools, but it is their job to execute on the tools. And that is a key differentiating factor between the 2 to 4 truck operator versus the 10 to 20 truck operator. If you think about like the multi-unit franchisees who have multi-million-dollar enterprises, when they buy into a brand, they're not just kind of going to sit there and pay for leads. They're going to go and build a multi-million-dollar business, which is, how do I go capture market share with relationships? Our mission statement at Rolling Suds is that this is a relationship. I believe that business and life in general is built on enriching relationships. And if we approach each interaction that we talk, whether it's a referral partner or a vendor or a customer or a franchisee, with the goal of building a meaningful relationship, we'll have an enriching life and our businesses will grow. And so we urge our franchisees to get out there and establish relationships. If you're not a people person, I don't think you should be a business owner.
It's a good point.
Business is people. It's all about the people. It's about people you hire. And if you don't like business, or don't like people, I wouldn't recommend starting a business.
I agree. That is I like how directly and bluntly you say that, but it's a very valid point, right? Because it's either getting, I mean, the lifeblood of your business is getting people to pay you, which means you're trying to get clients and or customers. And if you don't want to be a slave to that business or a solopreneur, then you need people to work for you.
And
And
you have to sell them on your vision to work for you.
and then to stay with you.
And then you have to, yeah, and then you have to retain them, which means you have to manage them. You know, I read somewhere that, like, as a CEO, you don't have jobs. Like, you don't have a job. Like, your job is to create a vision that your employees can fit their vision within. And that resonates with me, because, like, my goal is to build the biggest power washing company in the world, and to do it by providing exceptional experiences to our franchisees so that they can provide exceptional experiences to their customers. And that is a vision that my team can fit their vision within. And then you hire and you train and you delegate, and then you kind of step aside, and that's how you scale a business. And so we're trying to help franchisees do that at scale.
I love that. I love that speaking that bold vision. I'm curious how over the last year, how many hours have you worked a week on average?
um, so when I launched this, I didn't have any employees. And that's why it's so crazy when I hear people say they're just going to hire a GM and keep their job full time. I did everything. So I'd be up till 3 a.m. building systems. And that was because we didn't have any revenue yet, right? Like, I was getting us ready to make sure that we could produce revenue and provide systems for franchisees. So I had to create them. And then since February, when we took it to market, I've hired a new person about every 2 weeks. We sold our first franchise in March of last year, and I had a considerable amount of capital to invest in people due to my raise. And then as you continue to hire people, you then no longer have that role to do yourself, and you hire someone who is better at you to do that thing. And I got to the point where I didn't have to do anything else other than talk to potential buyers, because that is the highest leverage thing that I could have done this year, is select the people who are going to get us to, you know, a position where we're producing enough royalties to cover our costs. And the only way we're going to do that is to bring the right people in. And so now we've crossed 100 locations, and now I'm hiring for the role, and we're going to build a sales team, a franchise development team. So currently my schedule is 8 a.m. in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. I'm on phone calls with potential candidates. I have two one-on-ones with my executive team each week, and then they have one-on-ones with all their team members. So that's 50 hours. Now,
That's what's calendared.
that is what's calendared. Now, if you ask me how many hours I'm thinking about the business in my head, it's all the time. It's all the time. There is, when you start a business, it is such a high level of risk. And a lot of people don't understand this until you start a business. Like, there's so much on the line. I'm the sole provider of income in my house. I have 2 young kids. I have a 2.5-year-old son and a 14-month-old daughter. My wife stays at home with the kids. There's so much that needs to go well, and it's such a high level of risk that it's hard to turn that off. And that's where people come into place. Like, I have a senior vice president of operations. He handles ops. We have our one-on-one. He'll bring maybe 3 or 4 things that he needs my guidance on per week. I give him my guidance, and I know it's going to be handled. I have a VP of marketing. She manages multiple people underneath her, and I know that marketing is going to be handled. So that's why when I talk to people, I'm like, it's hard. It's going to be really hard. But, like, you have a whole team of people on my team, and you have a bunch of other franchisees who are trying to do the same thing to make it less hard. But like, it's going to take up all of your time until you get to a point where you feel like you can delegate and remove responsibilities from your plate.
This is the most refreshing conversation I've had in a long time because I love it. I love it. And this is kind of the conversation that I try to have with people. And yes, it is hard. And it's the people that go, sweet. I think the analogy I use is that if I just like walked up to you and just as hard as I could just punched you in the stomach without you expecting it, right? It's going to knock the wind out of you. You're going to be like, holy crap, you're not going to be able to breathe for like at least a good 30 to 45 seconds. But if I was like, hey, Aaron, all right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to punch you in your stomach as hard as I can. So flex, right? And if you flex, you're like, okay, it hurt a little bit, but like it didn't knock the wind out of me. But it was because you were prepared for it. That was the expectation that was set. And it's like, okay, it's still going to be a little bit painful, but you're willing to endure the pain. And that becomes the message.
And I believe that if franchisors can tell their candidates that, and the franchisees are still willing to sign up, that is responsible franchising. And, you've got to deliver as a franchisor. You've got to deliver on the things that you said you were going to do. And if you don't, that's irresponsible franchising. But I believe that setting the proper expectations and then people still deciding to do it, you're just going to have better validation. And you're going to have more successful franchisees. Like, I talked to a guy yesterday and he goes, and I just like knew by the end, like by 35 minutes in, I'm like, this guy's not going to be a good franchisee. He might be franchisee number 110, but he's not going to be franchisee number 35.
Why? What was it about the conversation that made you think that?
So I wasn't going to be able to give him the data that he needs to feel comfortable moving forward. So if you spend a ton of money and you don't believe in yourself and the opportunity enough to execute on it, you're just not going to do it. You're not going to execute on it. And so, like, I don't have 3 years of data of franchisees' performance showing that you can reasonably return this amount of revenue on your first year and this amount of, profit on your second year. Like, and I'm not going to have that for 3 years, 2 to 3 years from now. Right. So, because that's how franchising works. You get franchisees up and operating. They need to get 12 months of data. Then you need to get another set that has 12 months of data. So you really don't have a big data set as an emerging franchisor for quite some time. You're going off of, like, we're using our corporate location as goalposts, but it's 33 years in business. So it's franchisees that come in right now that set the standard for franchisees 2 to 3 years from now. And so I was like, this guy's not going to be able to set the standard. I'm not going to be able to get him the information that he needs to feel comfortable moving forward. And it'll be a waste of his money to invest in this because he won't be able to be successful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that, man. And so to rewind for a second, and I think we can round the corner on this, but you've talked a lot about hiring, building teams, and what you've done in hiring and building a team. How do you do that? How have you gone out and found talent? What's your process? Are you going through referrals? Are you just posting jobs? What's your litmus test? Are you using personality profiles? Are you asking weird questions like they do in the tech world? Like, what's your process?
So we have a pretty rigorous process of being part of the team. We have multiple rounds of interviews, and everyone has to give a go ahead. I'm super active online. I come out with a lot of content on how to be a good franchisee and what you need to know to be a good franchisor. And as a result, a lot of people come to me and ask if they can work for me. So there are multiple team members that I have that emailed me or messaged me on LinkedIn until I got on the phone with them and interviewed them and hired them. So that's a part of it. We use normal job boards. We just used a recruiter recently who found us an incredible senior marketing manager. Um, so it's everywhere. We don't have like one silver bullet. As I bring on someone to handle and build a sales team, I'll be able to spend more time creating content. There's currently a podcast studio being built in my basement right now. So we'll launch a podcast later this year and create more content, which will allow me to have a larger reach and a larger amount of impact um, at scale and building an audience. And that'll then produce more people who want to be part of the team, whether it'll be a franchisee or a potential employee. Then we're just pretty rigorous. We just say, is this person willing to do whatever it takes? Does this person have the grit? Is this person have the risk? Does this person have the risk tolerance to join a startup? I mean, it's a lot of the same question marks I'm asking when I talk to franchisees. Is like, this is going to be really hard. I'm going to be messaging you at 9 o'clock at night sometimes because we have 60 consultants coming out. Basically, we're putting on a mini convention in Nashville in March. 60 consultants from one network, which will be triple the size of the biggest one they've ever had. And like, that's basically a conference we're putting on. And that's in addition to like making sure franchisees have leads lined up when they go to training. It's in addition to making sure we have content that we're producing in every day. It's in addition to like all these things. And like, that's really hard. But everyone who's coming in, is at a stage in their life where they're willing to take a big swing as an employee, as a team member.
Yeah, awesome. And how do you, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, hey, when you're hiring, you've got to create incentives for the team that drives the right behavior and points towards the right thing. So what's your mindset and how do you go about creating incentive structures that align with roles?
So everyone has an end of year bonus, and that bonus is tied to a franchisee satisfaction survey. So we refer to ourselves as a franchisee company. As we've talked about, franchisors is a 4-letter word in some circles. But if we're a franchisee company, it's super clear what we do. We provide services to franchisees, and in return for the services, we're paid a royalty. To me, it's very simple. And so we have a survey that goes out at the end of every year. Depending on what that survey says, reflects everyone's bonus potential. And then each person, like, we run our business on EOS. So each person knows what their numbers are, how those numbers impact the growth of the company. And then we have a quarterly planning meeting every single quarter and an annual review. And then we have level 10 meetings each week. We have to-do lists, we have tasks. Every single person on the team knows what the other person's supposed to be doing, and also how their actions impact the size of the business. And then if we know the numbers that person is responsible for, we can create comp structures around improving those numbers.
Cool. That's awesome, man. Good stuff. Sweet, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And any last parting words that you want to drop on anyone?
No, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, I hope I didn't scare some people with how hard business is, but I also hope that I did, so that people know exactly what it's going to take to be successful. And again, if they hear everything that I just talked about and they're like, I'm in, let's do it, then we've got ourselves a chance of being successful as a franchisee-franchisor relationship.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, man. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.